The USS entered the fight, and nothing remained after its anger struck. Part 1. The Silent Giant. The ship floated in the darkness like a sleeping monster. It was black, completely black. No lights shone from its windows. No engines burned at its back. It just hung there in space, near Earth's moon, waiting for something that might never come. The USS was the biggest ship humanity had ever built. It was 2 kilometers long from front to back. Its body was covered in armor so thick that most weapons could not scratch it. Along its sides, hundreds of weapon ports remained closed and silent. They had been silent for 30 years. Captain stood on the bridge and looked out at the stars. He was 62 years old. His hair had turned at the temples. His face was calm, but his eyes held a deep sadness. He had seen war. He had seen death. He hoped he would never see them again. "Good morning, Captain," said Commander as she walked onto the bridge. She was his first officer. She had served with him for 15 years. She knew him better than anyone. "Good morning," replied. He did not turn from the window. Another quiet day. "The crew is getting restless," she said. "They train every day. They keep the ship ready. But they wonder if they will ever do anything real." The captain smiled a little. "Let them wonder. Let them hope they never have to find out what this ship can do." That was different from other ships in the United Earth Fleet. Other ships were made for patrol duty, for exploration, for protecting trade routes. That was made for one thing only: destruction, total and complete destruction. It was built during the colony wars 50 years ago. Back then, humanity was fighting for survival against 3 alien empires at once. Earth was burning. Colonies were falling. Billions were dying. In desperation, the greatest engineers and scientists came together to build something terrible, something that could end wars not through diplomacy but through fear. There was that something. Its main weapon was called the cannon. It could fire a beam of energy hot enough to melt through any armor, any shield, any defense. Its secondary weapons numbered in the hundreds. Its missile bays carried enough explosives to shatter a moon. It was not a ship. It was a message that said, "Do not make humanity desperate." The colony wars ended not long after that was completed. The enemy empires saw what humanity had built. They understood what it meant. They chose peace. Since then, they had never fired its weapons in anger. It just waited, a sleeping giant, a reminder. Lieutenant Park sat at the tactical station on the bridge. She was young, only 28 years old. She had graduated top of her class from the Earth Naval Academy. Her mind was sharp like a knife. She could calculate firing solutions faster than the ship's computers. But she had never seen real combat. None of the younger crew had. "Captain," she said, "I have completed the morning weapons check. All systems are green. All weapons are ready." "Good," Captain said. "Mark it in the log, same as yesterday, same as every day." Park nodded. She wanted to ask him something. She wanted to ask what it felt like to actually use these weapons. But she stayed quiet. The captain did not like to talk about the past. Deep in the ship, Chief Engineer walked through the engine room. He was a big man with rough hands. He had spent his whole career keeping the running. He knew every pipe, every wire, every system in this massive vessel. The engines hummed softly. They were barely using any power, just enough to keep the lights on and the air flowing. The real power, the terrible power that could drive this ship through any battle, remained locked away in the reactors. Put his hand on one of the reactor housings. It was warm. Inside, enough energy slept to power a small city, or to destroy one. "Rest easy," he whispered to the machine. "Maybe you will never have to wake up." In the medical bay, doctor reviewed patient files. There was not much to do. The crew was healthy. Minor injuries from training, a few colds, nothing serious. She was a small woman with kind eyes. She had joined them because she wanted to help people. Sometimes she wondered if she had made the right choice. A warship was a strange place for a healer. But she understood something important. If they ever went to war, there would be wounded, there would be dying, and they would need someone who cared about saving lives, not just taking them. Captain left the bridge and walked through his ship. He did this every day. He wanted to see his crew. He wanted them to see him. A good captain was not just a commander. He was a symbol. 4,000 people lived on this ship. 4,000 souls who had dedicated their lives to a weapon that might never be used. They trained hard. They stayed ready. They waited. In the mess hall, young sailors ate breakfast and talked about their families back on Earth. In the training rooms, Marines practiced combat drills. In the engineering sections, technicians checked systems for the 1,000th time. All of them knew what the was. All of them understood what it meant to serve on this ship. If they ever went to war, it would not be a small fight. It would not be a police action or a border dispute. It would be something terrible, something that required the worst weapon humanity had ever made. Captain finished his walk and returned to his quarters. He sat at his desk and looked at a photograph. It showed a young woman with a bright smile, his daughter. She lived on Earth now, with children of her own. He had not seen her in 2 years. Life on the meant isolation. It meant sacrifice. It meant putting duty above everything else. But it also meant protecting her, protecting everyone on Earth. As long as they existed, as long as it waited in the darkness, the enemies of humanity would think twice before starting a war. Far away on the other side of the galaxy, the Dominion was holding a war council. They were a proud species, warriors by nature, conquerors by choice. They had watched humanity for decades. They had seen humans spread across the stars. They had seen human colonies grow rich and peaceful. And they were jealous. The war leaders spoke of glory. They spoke of conquest. They spoke of teaching the young human race their proper place in the galaxy. Some counselors warned against attacking. They spoke of human determination. But the war leaders laughed. One ship. What was one ship against the mighty fleet? Humans were soft. Humans were weak. Humans cared too much about peace. The decision was made. They would strike. They would hit hard and fast. They would show the galaxy that humans were not special. They were just another prey species waiting to be conquered. They chose their target carefully. A farming colony, peaceful, barely defended. A soft target that would break human spirit. They did not understand what they were about to awaken. Back on the captain slept peacefully. He dreamed of green fields and warm sunlight. He dreamed of peace. He did not know that soon, very soon, he would have to wake the sleeping monster. And the galaxy would learn what human anger really meant. The USS entered the fight, and nothing remained after its anger struck. Part 2, Blood on New. The planet 4 was beautiful. It had green mountains and blue rivers. It had forests that stretched for thousands of kilometers. And it had rice terraces that climbed the hillsides like giant stairs, just like the ones in old Korea on Earth. The humans who lived there called their world New. It was a farming colony, simple, peaceful, happy. Governor Iam stood on her balcony and watched the sunrise. She was 50 years old with hair pulled back in a neat bun. She had been governor for 12 years. She loved her people. She loved this world. "Good morning, Governor," said her assistant, bringing her tea. "Good morning," Iam smiled. "What is on the schedule today?" The harvest festival preparations, the school opening ceremony in the Eastern District, and a meeting with the farmers about next season's crops. Iam nodded. Normal things, good things, the things that made life worth living. In the valley below, children walked to school. Farmers worked in the fields. Shopkeepers opened their stores. 2.3 million people went about their daily lives, not knowing that this would be their last peaceful morning. Lieutenant Shin Woo commanded the Planetary Defense Force. It was a small force, 3 patrol ships and 200 soldiers. Nu did not need a big military. It was far from any conflict zone. No enemy had ever shown interest in this quiet farming world. Xin Wu was doing paperwork when his communication officer burst into his office. "Sir, unknown ships dropping out of hyperspace." Xin Wu jumped to his feet. "How many?" 12, sir, big ones. They are not responding to hails." Xin Wu's blood went cold. 12 warships at an undefended colony could mean only one thing. "Sound the alarm. Get our ships in the air. Send a message to Earth immediately." He ran to the command center. On the screens he could see the enemy ships. They were warships, long and sharp like metal thorns. They moved toward the planet with terrible purpose. "This is Lieutenant Xin Wu of the new Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Vessels, you have entered human space without permission. State your intentions." They did not answer with words. They answered with fire. The first plasma beam struck the capital city. It hit the central market where hundreds of people were shopping for breakfast. The building exploded. Fire spread through the streets. People screamed and ran. Xin Wu watched in horror. All ships engage the enemy, protect the civilians. His 3 small patrol ships flew toward the fleet. They were brave, they were loyal, they had no chance. The first patrol ship lasted 30 seconds. The weapons tore through its shields like paper. The second ship managed to fire a few shots before it exploded. The third ship, commanded by Xin Wu himself, fought for almost 2 minutes. In the end, it was not enough. Xin Wu's last transmission reached Earth along with the colony's distress signal. "This is Lieutenant Xin Wu. We are under attack. We cannot hold. Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth. Do not forget us." Then his ship died. They did not stop with the defense force. They landed troops. Thousands of soldiers poured onto the surface of Nu. They were not there to conquer. They were there to punish. They believed in teaching lessons. They believed that fear was the best weapon. If they destroyed one human colony completely, they thought, the other colonies would surrender without a fight. So they showed no mercy. Governor I am tried to organize an evacuation, but where could 2.3 million people go? The spaceport was destroyed in the first hour. The roads were blocked by burning vehicles. The sky was filled with enemy ships. She did what she could. She opened the government bunkers. She told people to hide. She sent messages to every city and village, warning them to take cover. But it was not enough. The soldiers went door to door. They dragged people from their homes. They lined them up in the streets and shot them. Men, women, children, it did not matter. To the humans were just animals, weak creatures who needed to learn their place. In the Eastern District, a school teacher named Han gathered her students in the basement. She told them stories to keep them calm. She sang songs to cover the sound of explosions outside. For 6 hours, she protected those children. Then they found them. In the farming valleys, families hid in the rice terraces. They lay flat in the water, breathing through hollow reeds. Some of them survived, most did not. The beautiful green hills turned red with blood. The blue rivers ran dark with ash. The rice terraces that had taken generations to build burned to nothing. Governor Im stayed in her office until the end. Her staff begged her to hide. She refused. "I am the governor," she said. "These are my people. I will not abandon them." When the forces reached the government building, she was still there. She stood in front of the communication console, recording a final message. "This is Governor Im of Nu. Our world is dying. Our people are being murdered. We did nothing to deserve this. We were farmers, we were teachers, we were families." Tears ran down her face, but her voice stayed strong. "To whoever receives this message, please, do not let us be forgotten. Remember Nu, remember what happened here, and make sure it never happens again." She could hear the breaking down the doors. She did not run, she did not hide. She stood tall and faced the camera. "My name is I am human, and I am not afraid." The transmission ended when the soldiers entered the room. What happened next was recorded by security cameras that somehow kept working. That footage would later be shown to the United Earth Parliament. It would change everything. The massacre lasted 16 hours. When it was over, 1.8 million human beings were dead. Only 500,000 survived, most of them badly wounded. They left the planet. They did not stay to occupy it. That was not the point. The point was terror. The point was to show humanity what happened to species that expanded too far too fast. The fleet commander sent a message to the human government. This is what happens when you forget your place. Submit, or we will do this to every human world. He expected humanity to be broken. He expected them to cry and beg for peace. He expected them to surrender. He was wrong. The news reached Earth at midnight. First came the distress signals, then came the footage, then came the final transmission of Governor I.M. People watched in shock. Then shock turned to grief. Then grief turned to something else, something cold, something hard, something that had been sleeping inside humanity for a long time. Anger. In homes across Earth, people wept for new. In government buildings, officials demanded action. In military bases, soldiers prepared for war. And on the USS, Captain received the news in his quarters. He watched the footage of the massacre. He saw the bodies in the streets. He heard Governor I.M.'s final words. He sat very still for a long time. Then he stood up. He put on his uniform. He walked to the bridge. Commander met him there. Her eyes were red from crying. "Captain, have you seen?" "I have seen," he said quietly. "Wake the crew, all of them full alert." "Sir." He looked at her and she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was cold, absolute fury. "They have made a mistake," Captain said. "The worst mistake anyone has ever made. And we are going to show them what that mistake costs." Across the ship, alarms began to sound. 4,000 crew members woke from sleep. 4,000 hearts began to beat faster. There was waking up. And it was angry. The USS entered the fight, and nothing remained after its anger struck. Part 3: The Wakes. The United Earth Parliament met in emergency session. The Great Hall was full. Every seat was taken. Every face was grim. On the giant screen, they watched the footage from New Again. The burning cities, the bodies in the streets. Governor I.M. standing alone as death came for her. When the footage ended, the hall was silent. Then everyone started talking at once. "We must respond. We need to be careful. They have a large fleet. Our people were murdered. War could destroy us all. We cannot let this stand." The Prime Minister raised his hand for silence. He was a tall man with tired eyes. He had not slept since the news arrived. "We must decide what to do," he said. "They have killed 1.8 million of our citizens. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to submit. What is our answer?" A diplomat stood up. "We should negotiate. War with the Dominion could last for decades. Millions more could die. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution." Angry voices shouted him down. A military general stood next. "We should send the Third Fleet, strike their nearest military base, show them we can fight back." "The Third Fleet has 40 ships," another officer said. "They have over 300, we would lose." "Then what do we do?" "Nothing. We cannot do nothing." The argument went back and forth. Hours passed. No decision was made. Fear and anger fought each other in that great hall. Then Admiral Han stood up. She was small and old, 70 years of age. Her uniform was simple with few decorations. She had been quiet through the whole debate. Now everyone turned to look at her. Admiral Han had commanded ships during the colony wars. She had seen the worst fighting in human history. She had survived when millions of others had died. People respected her. People feared her. "I have listened to this debate," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the hall. I have heard good arguments for peace. I have heard good arguments for measured response. She paused and looked around the room. But I have not heard anyone say what I am about to say. The hall was completely silent. They did not attack a military target. They did not attack soldiers or warships. They attacked farmers, teachers, children. They murdered them in their homes. They executed them in the streets. They did this to send a message. Her eyes were cold. We must send a message back, not a measured response, not a diplomatic protest. We must show the entire galaxy what happens when someone does this to humanity. The Prime Minister leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Han spoke 4 words that would change history. Wake thee up. Silence, complete silence. Then whispers spread through the hall. Everyone knew what that ship was. Everyone knew what it could do. It was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. It had not been used in 30 years. Admiral, the Prime Minister said slowly, "Thee is extreme. Are you sure this is necessary?" They killed 1.8 million people, Admiral Han replied. They think we are weak. They think we will cry and beg. They need to learn the truth about humanity. And what is the truth? Admiral Han's face was like stone. The truth is that we do not forget. We do not forgive. And when someone hurts us, we hurt them back 10 times worse. She looked directly at the Prime Minister. Let me end this before it becomes a long war. Let me teach what human anger means. The vote was taken. It was not close. The order was given. At 300 hours, the message reached Captain on the. He read it on his personal console in the darkness of his quarters. Priority Alpha. From United Earth Fleet Command. To Captain KANGDAHO, USS Blackstar. Message: you are authorized to deploy. Full combat OPERATIONS. Mission: total destruction of VETH forces ATTAYNG4. No RESTRICTIONS. End message. He read it twice. Then he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He had always known this day might come. He had prayed it never would, but now it was here. He put on his captain's uniform. He looked at himself in the mirror. An old man going to war. An old man about to do something terrible. He walked to the bridge. The crew was already there. Commander stood at her station. Lieutenant Park was at tactical. Chief engineer had come up from engineering. Doctor stood quietly in the corner. They all looked at their captain. They all knew. You have seen the footage from Nu, Captain said. You know what happened to our people. You know what we are being asked to do. He walked to the center of the bridge. I will not lie to you. What we are about to do is terrible. We are going to kill many beings. We are going to destroy ships and end lives. This is not something to celebrate. This is not something to enjoy. He paused. But it is something we must do, because if we do not, they will do this again. They will attack another colony. They will murder more children. They will keep hurting us until we make them stop. Commander spoke. Sir, we are with you, all of us. Lieutenant Park nodded. My firing solutions are ready, Captain. Chief Engineer said, the engines are warming up. We can have full power in 1 hour. Doctor stepped forward. Captain, I am a healer. I do not like war, but I saw what they did to those people. I saw children dead in the streets. Her voice shook with emotion. Do what you must. I will be here to pick up the pieces. Captain looked at each of them, his crew, his family. Tell everyone to write letters home, he said. We may not return from this mission, but neither will they. That is my promise. The orders went out. Across the ship, weapon systems began to wake. Lights that had been dark for 30 years started to glow. Machines that had been sleeping began to hum. In the reactor room, Chief Engineer watched the power levels rise. He had kept these engines ready for this moment. He had hoped it would never come. But now that it was here, he felt something unexpected. Pride in his ship, pride in his crew, pride in humanity. "Come on, old girl," he whispered to the time to show them what you can do. Lieutenant Park ran through her weapons check. One by one, the systems came online. The cannon, the plasma batteries, the missile bays, the point defense systems. So much power, so much death waiting to be unleashed. She was young. She had never seen combat, but she had trained for this her whole career. And now, sitting at her station with her hands on the controls, she felt ready. The engines ignited. Blue fire erupted from the back of the ship. It was so bright that people on Earth's surface could see it with their naked eyes. They looked up at the sky and knew what it meant. Humanity's greatest weapon was going to war. The ship began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster. It left the orbit of Earth's moon and headed toward open space. Captain sat in his command chair. His face was calm, his voice was steady. "Set course for 4, maximum speed." "Course set, Captain." "All hands prepare for hyperspace jump." The crew strapped in. The engines roared louder. Space began to bend around the ship. Across the galaxy, sensors detected this movement. Allied species sent worried messages. Neutral powers asked questions. Everyone wanted to know where the giant ship was going. The Dominion heard the news too. Their spies reported that one human ship had left Earth orbit, just one ship heading toward 4. The War Council laughed. One ship. Against their 32 warships at Nu, the humans were fools. Emotional, stupid fools who were sending their people to die. They did not understand. They did not know what was coming. The USS jumped into hyperspace. Blue light surrounded the ship as it traveled faster than light itself. Inside, 4,000 human beings sat quietly. Some prayed. Some wrote final messages to their families. Some just stared at the walls, thinking about what they were about to do. Captain remained on the bridge. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He just sat in his chair and watched the blue light of hyperspace. In his mind, he saw the footage from Nu again. The children, the families. "Governor, I am standing alone at the end." "I am coming," he whispered to no one. "I am coming to give them your answer." They flew through the darkness between stars. Behind it, a galaxy watched and waited. Something terrible was about to happen. And it would change everything. The USS entered the fight, and nothing remained after its anger struck. Part 4. Arrival at the Graveyard. The USS dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The blue light faded. The stars appeared. And there, hanging in the darkness, was the burnt shell of Nu. Captain stood at the viewport and looked at what remained of the colony. The green planet was with black marks where cities had burned. The beautiful blue oceans were with ash. Even from space, he could see the destruction. "Sensor report," he said quietly. Lieutenant Park checked her screens. "I am detecting 32 warships in orbit around the planet, Captain. They have established a defensive formation. They know we are here." "Only 32, Commander said. They sent 12 for the attack. They must have called for backup." "They think 32 ships will be enough," Captain replied. His voice was cold. "They are wrong." The fleet hung in space like a wall of metal thorns. Their ships were long and sharp, designed to look scary. Their weapons glowed with red energy. They outnumbered the 32 to 1. On the flagship, Overseer Tal watched his sensors with amusement. He was a large creature, covered in thick skin. His eyes were small and cruel. He had led the attack on Nu. He had watched the humans die and felt nothing but pride. "One ship," he said to his officers. "The humans sent one ship. They are even more stupid than I thought." His second officer looked worried. "Overseer, that is I have read reports about that vessel. It is very dangerous." Tal laughed. "Dangerous. One ship against 32. Even if it is powerful, we will surround it and tear it apart. The humans are fools to send their precious weapon to die. He ordered his communication officer to open a channel. Human vessel, this is Overseer Tal of the Dominion. You are alone and outnumbered. Surrender your ship and your crew will receive quick deaths. This is generous. You have 60 seconds to respond. On the bridge crew listened to the message. Lieutenant Park's hands tightened on her console. Commander's face showed no emotion. Chief Engineer, watching from his station, shook his head slowly. Captain stood very still. He looked at the fleet on the screen. 32 ships that had helped murder 1.8 million of his people. 32 ships full of beings who thought humans were weak. He opened a channel. His voice was broadcast across all frequencies, not just to every ship and station in range, to the neutral observers watching from far away, to the allied species wondering what humanity would do. This is Captain of the USS. I am speaking to Overseer Tal of the Dominion. He paused. 2 days ago, you attacked a peaceful human colony. You murdered 1.8 million people. Men, women, children, farmers who had never hurt anyone, teachers who only wanted to help, families who were just living their lives. His voice grew harder. You did this because you thought we were weak. You did this because you wanted to teach us fear. You expected us to cry. You expected us to beg. He took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the fleet. I have not come here to negotiate. I have not come here for justice. Justice is for courts and lawyers. This is not about justice. The entire bridge was silent. I have come here to show the galaxy what happens when you make humanity angry. I have come here to make an example, not of you personally, Overseer, of your entire fleet. I want every species in this galaxy to see what I am about to do. I want them to remember it forever. He raised his hand. Tell your crews to make peace with whatever gods they worship. You have 30 seconds. Then I am going to kill every single one of you. He closed the channel. Overseer Tal stared at his screen in shock. He had never heard a human speak like that. For a moment, just a moment, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Fear. Then he pushed it away. One ship, just one ship. No matter how powerful it was, it could not defeat 32 warships alone. The human captain was bluffing. He had to be. All ships attack formation, Tal commanded. Destroy that vessel. The fleet began to move. 32 warships spread out to surround their weapons charged, their shields activated. They were confident. They had numbers on their side. Lieutenant Park reported the enemy movement. They are surrounding us, Captain. Weapons range in 45 seconds. Let them come, Captain said. He sat in his command chair. All weapons online. Target every ship in the fleet. Sir, every ship at once. Every ship, every weapon. When I give the order, I want fire on all of them simultaneously. Park's fingers flew across her console. The targeting computers worked faster than they ever had before. Hundreds of weapons locked onto targets. The cannon powered up with a sound like a giant waking from sleep. Chief Engineer pushed the reactors to maximum. Power flowed through the ship like blood through a body. Systems that had been sleeping for 30 years came fully alive. Reactors at 100%, Captain. She is ready. Commander checked the shield status. Shields at maximum. Point defense systems active. We are as protected as we can be. Doctor stood in the medical bay, watching the battle preparation on her screens. Her staff was ready. Beds were prepared. Medicine was laid out. She hoped she would not need any of it. The fleet closed in. 32 ships, each one bristling with weapons. They were so confident, so sure of victory, they could not imagine any other outcome. Overseer Tal watched from his flagship. The human ship sat there in the center of his fleet, not moving, not running, just waiting. Foolish creatures, he muttered, fire. 32 ships opened fire at once. And then something unexpected happened. The shields flared bright white as hundreds of weapons hit them. The ship shook. Alarms rang, but the shields held. Not just held, they did not even weaken. The weapons, powerful enough to destroy normal warships, did almost nothing to the defenses. Overseer Tal watched in disbelief. Increased power, all weapons, maximum fire. They poured everything they had into the attack. Red beams and missiles and plasma bolts struck them from every direction. The shields flashed and flickered. But they held. On this bridge, Captain did not flinch. He watched the enemy fire splash against his shields like rain against a window. Shield status: 92%, Captain, Commander reported. Their weapons are not getting through. Good, he looked at Lieutenant Park. Do you have firing solutions for all targets? Yes, Captain, all 32 ships locked. He nodded slowly. He thought about Nu. He thought about the children in the streets. He thought about Governor I am standing alone at the end. This was the moment when humanity would show the galaxy what it truly was. Lieutenant Park, Captain said. His voice was calm and cold. Fire everything. Park pressed the button, and hell opened its gates. Every weapon on the fired at once. The cannon unleashed a beam of white fire so bright that nearby sensors went blind. Hundreds of secondary weapons sent streams of death in every direction. Missiles launched by the dozen, each one smart enough to find its target. The first ship exploded before its crew understood what was happening. One moment it was there. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of gas and metal. The second ship followed, and the third, and the fourth. Overseer Tal watched his fleet die around him. No, he whispered, this is not possible. But it was happening. They moved through his formation like death itself. Its weapons never stopped firing. Every shot found a target. Every target died. They tried to fight back. They tried to coordinate their attacks. They tried to find weak points in the defenses. There were no weak points. In the first 5 minutes, 10 ships were destroyed. In the next 5 minutes, 10 more died. There was unstoppable, inevitable, a force of nature that could not be reasoned with or escaped from. Overseer Tal finally understood. This was not a battle. This was an execution. All ships retreat, he screamed. Retreat, jump to hyperspace. But they was ready for that too. On Captain's order, the ship activated its hyperspace interdiction field. It was illegal under galactic law. It trapped ships in normal space, preventing them from running. They could not escape, they could not fight, they could only die. And die they did. One by one, the proud warships were torn apart. Their shields failed. Their armor melted. Their crews perished in fire and vacuum. Overseer Tal watched his flagship's shields collapse. He saw the weapons turn toward him. In his last moment, he finally understood the terrible mistake he had made. Humans were not weak. Humans were not soft. Humans were patient. They built relationships. They traded. They made friends. They seemed peaceful. But when someone hurt them, when someone murdered their children, they became something else. Something ancient. Something merciless. Something that would not stop until every enemy was dead. The last warship exploded in a ball of orange fire. And then there was silence. The USS hung motionless in space, surrounded by the wreckage of 32 enemy ships. Its weapons were still hot. Its shields were still strong. Its crew was still alive. Captain stood on his bridge and looked at what he had done. The battle had lasted 47 minutes, 32 ships destroyed, 16,000 killed. Human casualties, 0. The galaxy watched through sensor data from neutral observers. They recorded everything. They would remember this day forever. Commander broke the silence. Captain, the occupation forces on the planet are broadcasting their surrender. They are asking for mercy. Captain was quiet for a long moment. He thought about giving the same mercy they had given to Nu. He thought about killing them all. But he did not. "Accept their surrender," he said. "We are not like them. We do not murder helpless enemies." He turned away from the viewport. "But make sure they understand. Make sure everyone understands. This is what happens when you hurt humanity. This is what we become when you make us angry." The message went out to the galaxy. And the galaxy listened. The USS entered the fight, and nothing remained after its anger struck. Part 5. The Anger of Humanity. The battle was over, but the work was not finished. Captain stood on his bridge and watched rescue shuttles descend to Nu's surface. The occupation forces had surrendered completely. 3,000 soldiers were now prisoners, guarded by Marines from the survivors of Nu were being found. 500,000 humans who had hidden in caves, bunkers, and forests. They came out slowly, afraid that the nightmare was not really over. "Sir," Commander said quietly, "we are receiving transmissions from the survivors. They want to know who saved them." "Tell them it was the United Earth Fleet," Captain replied. "Tell them they are safe now. They are asking to speak with you personally." The captain was quiet for a moment, then he shook his head. "Not yet, there is more to do first." The debris field around the planet was massive. 32 warships had become millions of pieces of twisted metal. Bodies floated in the vacuum. Bodies, but bodies nonetheless. Captain had ordered his crew to recover what they could. Even enemies deserved some dignity in death. Lieutenant Park worked at her console, cataloging the destruction. Her hands had stopped shaking an hour ago. She had fired the weapons that killed 16,000 beings. She had done her duty, but the weight of it sat heavy on her shoulders. Chief Engineer moved through the ship checking systems. They had performed perfectly. Not a single malfunction, not a single failure. The weapon systems had worked exactly as designed. He found himself in the main reactor room, staring at the massive power core. This machine had given them the energy to destroy an entire fleet. It hummed softly now, back to normal operation. "You did what you were built to do," he said to the reactor. "I just wish you had never needed to." In the medical bay, Doctor treated the few injuries from the battle. Minor burns from overheated consoles. A broken arm from someone falling during a shield impact. Nothing serious. No deaths. No critical wounds. It felt wrong. They had killed so many and they had not suffered at all. She sat alone after finishing her work. She thought about the soldiers who had died. They had families too, probably. Children who would never see their parents again. She did not feel sorry for them exactly. They had murdered innocent people, but she could not feel happy about their deaths either. A young medic approached her. "Doctor, are you all right?" "No," she said honestly. "I do not think any of us are all right, but we will survive. That is what humans do." On the surface of Nu, the survivors gathered in what remained of the capital city. They looked up at the sky, where the massive shape of the was visible even in daylight. They had watched the battle from bunkers and hiding places. They had seen the ships explode one by one. An old farmer named sat on the broken steps of what had been his home. His entire family was dead. His wife, his 3 children, he had hidden in a water tank and listened to them die. Now he looked up at the and felt something strange. Not happiness, not relief, something harder, something colder. "Good," he whispered. "They deserve to die. They all deserve to die." A woman nearby heard him. She was holding a baby, the only survivor of her village. "Do you think it is over?" she asked. "I do not know," replied, "but I know this. They will never forget what happened here today. They attacked us because they thought we were weak. Now they know the truth." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread fast. Sensor data from neutral observers was analyzed and shared. Everyone wanted to see what had happened at Nu. The footage was shocking. 1 human ship against 32 warships. A battle that lasted less than an hour. Total victory for the humans. Total destruction for the. Military experts studied the footage carefully. They noted how the had shrugged off enemy fire. They noted how its weapons had destroyed ships with single shots. They calculated the power output and shook their heads in disbelief. "This changes everything," one analyst said. "We knew that was powerful. We did not know it was this powerful." Allied species sent messages of support to Earth. Some were genuine. Some were nervous. If humanity could do this to what could they do to anyone who angered them? Neutral species stayed quiet. They updated their diplomatic files on humanity. They added new warnings and cautions. Some of them quietly increased their military spending. The Dominion received the news in their capital world. The War Council gathered in emergency session. The mood was very different from their last meeting. 32 ships, the High Overseer said. 32 of our finest warships destroyed by one human vessel. How is this possible? No one had an answer. Overseer Tal is dead. His entire fleet is gone. The occupation forces on Nu have surrendered. The High Overseer looked at his council with old, tired eyes. We attacked the humans to show them their place. Instead, they showed us ours. A younger council member spoke up. We must strike back. We cannot let this insult stand. Strike back with what? Another member replied. You saw the footage. They destroyed our ships like they were nothing. If we send more ships, they will die too. Then we send our entire fleet. And if that is not enough, what if the humans have more ships like what if they come for our? The argument went back and forth, but slowly a new reality became clear. They had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something they could not defeat. On the USS, Captain finally agreed to speak with the survivors on the surface. He took a shuttle down with Commander. They landed in the ruins of the capital city. Thousands of survivors gathered to see him. They were dirty and wounded and grieving. They had lost everything. But when they saw the captain step off the shuttle, they fell silent. Captain walked through the crowd. He looked at their faces. He saw their pain. He felt it in his own heart. A small girl approached him. She was maybe 7 years old. Her clothes were torn and burned. Her face was dirty, but her eyes were bright. Are you the one who killed the bad aliens? She asked. Captain knelt down to her level. Yes, he said simply. I am. Thank you, the girl said. They hurt my mommy. They hurt everyone. He did not know what to say. What could anyone say? He reached out and gently touched her shoulder. I am sorry we did not come sooner, he said. I am sorry we could not save everyone. The girl shook her head. You saved me, you saved us. She pointed at the sky. Your big ship saved us. Commander watched the scene with tears in her eyes. She had wondered if what they did was right. She had wondered if the destruction they caused was justified. Now, looking at this little girl, she knew. They had done what needed to be done. They had protected humanity. They had shown the galaxy that humans would not accept this kind of attack. The price was terrible, but the alternative was worse. Captain stood up and addressed the crowd. People of Nu, he said, you have suffered more than anyone should ever have to suffer. You have lost families and friends and homes. Nothing I can do will bring them back. He paused. But I promise you this, they will never attack another human colony. They have learned what human anger means. The entire galaxy has learned. He looked up at the sky where they waited. We built that ship because we had to, because the universe is dangerous, because there are beings out there who see peace as weakness. We hoped we would never need to use it. We hoped humanity could live in peace. His voice hardened. But when peace fails, when enemies murder our children, we will not hesitate. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy to those who showed none to us. We will do whatever is necessary to protect our people. He looked back at the crowd. This is who humanity is. We are kind when we can be. We are gentle when it is safe. But when someone threatens what we love, we become something else. Something that will never stop. Something that will never forgive. He raised his hand toward the sky. That ship up there is a promise to every human everywhere. You are not alone, you will never be abandoned, and if anyone hurts you, we will come. We will find them, and we will make them pay. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then slowly they began to applaud. It started softly and grew louder. People cheered, people wept, people held each other. They had been through hell, they had lost almost everything, but they were still alive, they were still human, and they knew that the rest of humanity had not forgotten them. Captain walked back to his shuttle. The weight of the day pressed down on him. He had killed thousands. He had destroyed an entire fleet. He had done terrible things. But looking at those survivors, looking at that little girl, he knew he would do it all again. That was the burden of command. That was the cost of protection. And that was the anger of humanity.